Hello and welcome back to my small little library. Let's start today's video with a little bit of a disclaimer. I am sick currently. I have to burp a lot. I try to cut it out of the video, but sometimes it just happens, so please excuse me burping a lot in the video. I cannot help it. It is my sickness. So yeah, that first and foremost. And yeah. Then, let's start with the video. In this week's video, I thought a lot about what I wanted to do, and I did review these books already, like one-on-one in the vlogs that I did and in the monthly wrap-ups, but I did want to do a video about them because I have quite a few thoughts about the books, and I thought, why not do a video about them, because maybe first of all, maybe not everyone has heard about them. They are popular, but I don't think they are like really like high-praised fiction. And then I also think I have so many thoughts about them, especially looking from like a more modern perspective onto these books, that I think it might be a good thing to talk about them. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to talk about the John Carter series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I think at the beginning he calls them the Martian series. I'm really not sure what the official series name would be, but they start with John Carter. He's like the main aspect that connects all of these books. And they play on Mars, which is called Barsoom in the Martian language. Let's start with a few facts about Edgar Rice Burroughs, because even though I don't want to focus on the author, I just want to focus on the books, I think I have to just like say a few words about him, because he isn't the most uncontroversial person. So yeah, just like for a bit of an overview, he was born in 1875 in Chicago in Illinois, and he did die in March of 1950 in California. So yeah, obviously he lived through the First and Second World War, and yeah, he lived in a different time from today, and I think it's important to remember that when we come to the books and also to himself. And yeah, actually, the reason why he started writing, I think, is kind of funny. He started reading pulp fiction. There were pulp magazines back then where authors could like publish like short stories. A lot of stories weren't published in books back then. One example for that is Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes was actually published in like incremental series in a newspaper, and that is why you have a lot of like these shorter episodes that then were put into books later on. So yeah, the same was what he was reading, just in like a magazine form with like a lot of different stories all together. And he thought to himself, well, these authors are shit and they make money for that, though I doubt they made a lot of money, but they did make money publishing their stories in those pulp magazines. And so he thought to himself, I can do that as well. I actually think I'm better. And so he did just that. He started publishing stories in pulp magazines, and then he actually started publishing books. There were 2 decades where his books really weren't that well, but they just weren't known actually. Like he had like a lot of like an hype around Tarzan coming out, because he is the author of Tarzan, of all of those books, and he actually had his hand in like a lot of the movies, the animated series at first, all that is not connected to Disney when it comes to Tarzan. But yeah, so he did that, and then he started publishing novels actually, and yeah, they got pretty much forgotten for about 2 decades, and then they were republished and got like a second hype, kind of. And so he is actually one of the early writers in fantasy and science fiction, and I think that needs to be said. He is one of those. He wrote the Barsoom novels, which play on Mars. Then we have his Venus novels, and we have Tarzan and all of the novels that come to that, and then he has a few other sprinkled here and there that aren't like big series. So that all being said, he was racist. There's just no other way around it. He I actually didn't believe it at first, because I feel like if you only read the series, you won't really notice this. I mean, who am I to talk about it, you know? But I feel like in these novels, it just isn't a theme. I mean, here women are more the punching bag, you know? But especially seemingly in the Tarzan novels, I haven't read those. I have no interest in reading them, especially after reading a little bit about them. But yeah, the Tarzan novels were really, really racist, actually. Disney obviously made it for kids, and they just took out all of the problematic parts. But yeah, as it is, Tarzan seemed to kill a lot of like indigenous and black people in the novels, which I never knew, to be honest. So that was a little bit shocking to find out, to be honest. And yeah, he also finds a village where there is eugenics practiced, actually. They just kill all of the criminals that live there, and because of that, they are criminal free. Like, they kill not only the criminal, but also like the whole family to rid the world of criminals, and then there aren't any criminals left. So yeah, he was a big fan of racism and eugenics, which is a really problematic thing. Though I do think we have to take into consideration the time where he lived and probably his education and all of that. But yeah, all in all, he doesn't seem to be like a really nice human being. Yeah, that being said, he didn't profit from me buying these books. I bought them secondhand. I don't think it's a problem to want to read books even by those authors. I personally didn't know anything about the author when I bought these books, so that's also, I think, something you have to remember. I'm really not somebody who Googles authors before buying books from them. I think some people might be of the opinion that you should do that, but I think, especially if I buy books secondhand, it's not really a problem. He's long dead. He doesn't profit from the books anymore, and I don't think it's a bad thing to be interested in reading older books, to be honest. So yeah, that being said, I have no interest in reading anything else from him, but that is because of the series and not necessarily because of who he is, you know. So let's come to the John Carter series. I own 9 of the books physically. 1 I own as an ebook, and the last one, the 11th one, I just didn't buy, I didn't read, because in all honesty there is no reason for that, and I will explain to you why. But all of these books have gotten 2 or 3 stars, most of them 3 stars. A few I have found to be really bad have gotten 2 stars. The one thing is, these are pulp fiction. These aren't meant to be literary masterworks. These are meant to be entertaining and just there for the fun of it. He talks about that, and it is something you have to keep in mind. I think sometimes people forget that you can read stuff just for the sake of reading it, not for like finding the next masterwork in fiction. You know, I think we can all kind of like talk about good books, bad books, entertaining books. I did a whole video, I will link it to you here or here, wherever it is, about books I feel like are like popcorn movies, so just entertaining books that aren't like masterworks, but that I do enjoy reading, and I think these kind of fall into the same line. That being said, I didn't necessarily enjoy reading them, but I had to give them 3 stars. For me, these are superb adventure novels. You have a lot of fighting, you have a lot of like adventure, going around, seeing new places, finding new and different people. There are a lot of different races and people on Mars, and you pretty much find one in every book, so you slowly expand on your knowledge of Barzu or Mars, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think that is actually kind of a nice thing in these novels, which is also why I gave a lot of them 3 stars, even though I wasn't impressed with the stories themselves. But I think these are like great adventure novels. I would love to see a more modern version of these. Maybe they are out there and I just haven't found them yet. But yeah, I really enjoyed the adventure. You know, I like having like a really over-the-top hero, because obviously John Carter is from Earth and he kind of dies on Earth and he gets ported to Mars. He doesn't really die, but he's like unconscious in a cave and yeah, somehow he gets to Mars, and because of his earthen muscles, he can jump really high on Mars, and he is like a really superb swordsman. And so he kind of fights his way out of everything, you know. But I enjoy that. I like a good hero who is better than everyone else and just like makes his way through. The problem that arises in all of these, and I'm gonna tell you in a minute, but I don't think I need to review each and every one of these alone for this video, because pretty much every book has the same story, and that is where my problems come in. It starts with the very first one, and it really doesn't change over the books. You know, at some points they start with a different idea, but in the end you always come back to the male protagonist, or sometimes we have a female protagonist. It is really rare. I think it's 2 out of the 11 books, but then guys talk over the women anyway, so they just start with the female protagonist. But yeah, we pretty much always have a male protagonist who somehow finds a woman he is really attracted to, and well, the woman gets kidnapped each and every time. And so the guy has to go after her and try to rescue her. A lot of the time he meets a second woman on the way who falls in love with him as well, but he like really makes clear, like, no, I want that woman that was kidnapped first. And so the second woman a lot of the time like finds another lover. But yeah, that is pretty much the story of each and every one of these books. They are happening, like, there are different things happening. It's not like they are the same, like each and every point of the story. The circumstances of the kidnappings are different, and obviously we meet different races that live on Mars, and so that is different, but in the end it always boils down to, I want the girl gets kidnapped, taken away, whatever, and he has to go after her. And all of these men really aren't that bright. They get captured again and again so they can free themselves again and again. They rescue the girl gets captured again, they have to rescue her again, and in the end, obviously, the girl is always like, oh my god, I love you so much, let's marry. And they marry. That is each and every one of these stories, and maybe you can see where my problem lies here, but I find this to be incredibly annoying. I don't think there's a reason why the theme has to be there anyway. I mean, I'm not much of a like knowledgeable when it comes to pulp fiction of this timeline or time frame. Maybe it was always like that, and maybe it was just what was in at the time. But if you read these one after another, which is what I have done, they're just so boring. In the end, even though there are all of these interesting bits of combat and stuff like that in there, all of them are the same story, and you feel like you've read that. And then they do the same mistakes over and over and over again, especially John Carter. He's like in the first book, he's in the 10th book as the main character, and I think, well, he's in the first 2 or 3, and then in the last one, the main character, and he still does the same errors in the last book than in the beginning, so he hasn't learned anything. Like, they get tricked so easily, these men. They really don't have like any brain cells in there, which is like a really weird thing, you know. Yeah, then they get captured and yeah, still kind of get the woman in the end, you know. Another thing I find to be really weird with these stories is John Carter has, well, 2 children that I know of, 1 daughter, 1 son. The son gets his own book, the daughter as well, but as I said already, if you have a female character as the main character in the beginning, the male counterpart really early on gets to be the main narrator, even though it starts with the woman, because obviously she still gets captured, because it can't be otherwise, you know. But yeah, so what I felt like these obviously weren't thought through from the beginning, because he never talks about John Carter's children, even though when they get mentioned the first time they are already adults. And that is the same with all of the other characters. You know, every time he thought he needed a new character, he just made him come up from Earth again. Like, in the end, there are like 3 men from Earth that live on Basum. And yeah, he also just like found new women, found new children every time he needed one. So it feels really weird if you read about it, because the beginning from one novel might be like pretty much at the end of the other novel, like timeline wise, and the child did already exist in the other novel technically, but it was never mentioned, and that feels really weird in my opinion. Also, the women aren't like all there to look at. They are actually kind of like intelligent, the women, but doesn't mean that the men listen to them. But yeah, the women seem to be a lot more like thinkers. And some of them are trained in the swords, but they never really fight, which I think is kind of a waste. Like, they should have made the women fight as well, but yeah. So, that is why I don't really want to review each and every book, because they are all the same. I still think these are really entertainable. As much as I have problems with them and I'm annoyed at some of the facts in the book, you know, like how really all of these books reduce women to like their looks alone, nothing else. There's a lot of emphasis on looking good in here, on attractiveness. One of the books, for example, there's a doctor who can change your brain into another person's body, and then you have that body. Kind of interesting story-wise, to be honest. But yeah, obviously the story is at some point our main guy gets his brain put into like the body of a reptile man, kind of, and he himself is like, oh my god, I'm so ugly, and he sparks friendship with the woman he wants to rescue, but he doesn't want to tell her that is him, because she will then, in his opinion, remember him as this ugly creature, even though it's his brain in there, and then she won't want him once he's back in his own pretty body. Which is like, you know, the woman in the end explains to him, like, I fell in love with your brain and not your body, obviously, but he doesn't get it. So all of these guys are really like, oh, one pretty woman, I want her. it's just to be honest, I feel like if you look at it from a modern standpoint, it's really laughable. It's obviously these are written for men. I think in this day and age, a lot of books aren't really having like a target audience when it comes to gender, more like a target audience when it comes to like age groups. These are obviously written for young men. They're still entertaining, you know, but at some points I was just really sitting here and be like, why? I mean, in one of these books he's like, oh, you can't talk about a guy being beautiful, that really, really makes him female. You're like, what? Why? It's a weird ride, to be honest, reading books these old that focus so much on aspects like aesthetics, like looking good, being attractive, and that the woman has to be attractive and stuff like that. It's so weird. I find it entertaining and weird at the same time. I'm not angry about it, you know. It's a funny fact about old books, you know. There doesn't need to be an outcry about it. I just think you have to keep that in mind. I know people who don't enjoy stuff like that. I don't mind it. I find it funny, to be honest. But yeah, I know a lot of people who wouldn't enjoy this. So if you ever want to read this, be advised. Maybe get out your inner teenage boy and let him enjoy the books, you know. Just like switch off to that. But yeah. So, these are my opinions about these. I don't know, I wish for a series like this, a modern touch to it, but still set on Mars, kind of. You know, I want like a modern remake of these. I would really enjoy that. I think pulp novels are really cool, kind of. Sometimes I feel like today books try a bit too much, and he obviously didn't try. I read one quote where another author quotes him, so I don't know if it's true, but he quotes him as saying like, yeah, with the book Tarzan, it was actually, let me get that. So it was actually, Rudyard Kipling, the author of The Jungle Book, who talked about this because The Jungle Book was published first, and Kipling actually read Tarzan, and he was sad that he didn't get to see the movie. But yeah, he's pretty sure that Burroughs saw The Jungle Book and wanted to do a pulp version of it, and he wanted to write the worst book he could and see how people would enjoy that, and to see like how people would like still rave about it. And if you think about it, Tarzan actually was his most like lucrative franchise. So yeah, he kind of pranked the people, if you can say it like that. But yeah, if you look at it from a modern touch, like he pranked all of those people, thinking like he published this really cool novel, and he actually published like a bad novel, like, or one he thought was bad, and made a lot of money out of that. But yeah, so it seems like Tarzan was inspired by The Jungle Book, which we're not talking about that one. We're talking about Burroughs. But yeah, so yeah, that is kind of like my little rant review about Edgar Rice Burroughs and his Brazilian novels. I do own another novel by him, and that is Pellucida. That is the cover, which, to be honest, I absolutely love these covers. But yeah, this is the second novel in a series, I think. I think that is what I saw. So yeah, this is pretty much about a world in the Earth's core, and yeah, I don't know if it's worth it to buy the first one and then read these two, because obviously I was so bored at the end by the Martian series, so I'm really not sure if these will be any different. So if you have read those, maybe like leave a comment down below telling me if they are worth reading still, even though I was a little bit bored at the end by these. But yeah, I would actually love to know that. Before that, I will just not pick these up, to be honest, because I don't know if it's worth it. And to be honest, I think 10 books are actually quite enough to have read by him. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it's kind of like a little bit of a quicker rant review. But yeah, I'm still, so I'm trying to do my best here. But yeah, if you liked the video, please leave a like, comment. If you've read these books, what is your opinion on them? If you've read Pellucida, please let me know down below if it's worth to be reading that series. And yeah, maybe subscribe. That would mean the world to me, to be honest. We're nearly at 100 subscribers, which is totally cool, to be honest. And yeah, hopefully I will see you in the next video, which is the vlog that will go up on Sunday, Monday, sometime around there. So yeah, hope to see you all again. Bye bye.